For the last 2 years, I have been completely off of social media, and during this time, it completely changed my view of it. So in today's video, I actually want to discuss what the issues with social media actually are and do it in a non-negative way. I think that if we can actually understand the issues at hand, it allows us to be able to create solutions for it. I'm also going to share what the solutions I've actually incorporated into my life to be able to now use social media, but in a far healthier and happier way. First, we need to understand the main components to why social media is so addictive. Social media is about sociology and psychology more than technology. Social media is a product of some of the largest companies in the world, with Google and Facebook landing in the top 10. And just like any profitable company, it requires there be a consumer of the product. For a company like Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, or even YouTube to be profitable, it requires people to stay on the platform and consume the content. The longer you are on the platform, the more revenue they get off of advertisements. And here lies the issue. There are only 24 hours in the day, with on average 7 of those being asleep and 8 of those being at work. That means that companies have to compete against the other 9 hours of your day. So these are massive multi-billion-dollar companies that are spending billions of dollars a year on being able to get the best algorithms and have the absolute best minds working on techniques to capture your attention. Now, I think that you can make the argument that this is very negative, and how does an individual stand a chance on being able to beat that? But I want to think about it in a different way. I think, look at the lengths these people are having to go to just to be able to capture your attention. I think that shows how much power the individual has. Time. The average individual will spend 6 years and 8 months of their lives using social media. That is almost 6 times more than will be spent socializing. When we understand the main objective of these social media companies is to capture your time, this allows us to be able to have an actual understanding of what is going on, instead of our time just being taken from us. I think when we realize this, I think that it allows us to be able to make steps going forward. And while I do think focusing on what's happening internally is actually the best practice, I think another very easy practice would be able to understand that in one way or another, social media is going to be a part of your life. So that means you get to decide how much time you want to give it. I choose to give it around an hour of my day as a consumer, mostly watching Star Wars YouTube videos. Introspection. As I hinted earlier, I believe that introspection is the way that we can beat social media addiction and the negativity that revolves around it. These companies need you to be detached from your life so they can capture your time and keep you on your platform. So the best way for them is for you to escape from your own feelings and go to your phone and spend time on their platforms. Before I took my 2-year break from social media, I was 21 and hardly knew at all who I was, much less the life I wanted to live. I pretended to feel like I knew what I was doing, but overall, I was very much afraid. So the 2 or 3 hour benders that I would be spending just mindlessly scrolling on social media, while I did feel like crap afterwards, it felt better than me having to confront my own internal sadness that I was feeling. I was surrounding myself in kind of a negative digital world that it made me feel kind of like I was amongst people that were feeling similar to me, but overall it was causing me to detach even further from my own life. Addiction begins with the hope that something out there can instantly fill up the emptiness inside. I think this is also the reason so many people work in jobs they absolutely hate. It is easier to do that than to take time to understand who you are and separate from the illusion that has been placed on you since you were a kid. Discovering who you are through techniques such as journaling, meditation, or going to therapy really allows you to be able to set the intention on how you want to live your life. I think that this is the single biggest component that has allowed me to be able to use social media as the incredibly powerful tool it is, instead of a crutch in my life. Fear. Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. The social media companies, I would say, have done an excellent job at being able to target your fear mechanisms, especially prioritizing the fear of missing out. It removes the self-control, alleviates the anxiety, prompts a compulsive behavior of constantly feeling like you are searching for something, and puts you in a place of uncertainty, which ultimately in itself causes you to feel more FOMO. And I believe that there is an even larger component to the fear that is being attacked. I think that when you look at humans, we are very social creatures, with the majority of our lives having to adapt to situations for survival. That means that our brains are primed in a perfect way to be able to predict certain things that allows us to be able to avoid harm in the best way possible. What social media does is it allows us to see the external world, but in a non-physical way. We're not able to get all of the other sensory information that allows us to know if we are in danger or not. So what I think that it does is when we see something, it causes us internally to feel some sort of anxiousness or happy or sad or fearful, all of these different emotions. But we're not primed to be able to understand how to actually handle it. What used to be, you would be with your tight-knit group and you would be able to kind of tell what the tone of the environment was off of them. We now have the illusion that thousands of other people are in our circle as well, and they all have different opinions on the matter at hand. So it's impossible for us to ever feel truly certain in what it is that we're doing, hence causing the fear of always missing out. But I think that there's an easy answer to this, and that is that the more time you spend actually out in the real world, like grocery stores or movie theaters or whatever the case is, you start to realize that the world is so much different than what you see on your phone. I used to always think that everyone was shredded with the physique that I wanted, until I actually started traveling and I realized I am by far one of the most fit people amongst these people. I think that we have the illusion that everyone is super attractive and all of the women have perfect hair and perfect nails and all of the guys are 6'3" and up and they are super wealthy and they drive super nice cars and they're traveling all over the world. In reality, that is mostly just not the case. Working at a bank, I was able to see a tremendous amount of people that were very successful, but predominantly they were not happy. We get to see the external accomplishments of a lot of people through social media, but what we don't get to see is the internal price that they have to pay for those accomplishments. Dopamine. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I fully understand dopamine and strongly suggest that you listen to Andrew Huberman or an actual scientist that can properly explain this. But I've done a decent amount of research to be able to give you an elementary explanation and be able to provide some sort of assistance. Dopamine is a chemical that gets released, causing you to feel good, like a reward center. When you first get on social media in the morning, or like a lunch break, or after a movie, there is a certain level of dopamine that is going to get just dumped into your system. And that is to aid in the discovery that you are feeling. However, very shortly after, you're going to start flatlining on the dopamine. And so what your body is doing is it is trying to find more of that because it wants that spike. But also kind of like when I was saying that our bodies aren't primed to handle what it is that we're going through. I think of our minds just like computers. It's trying to learn as much as possible. And the more time that we put a phone in front of ourselves, the more it is becoming a habit and the more our minds are trying to wrap ourselves around it. Unfortunately, I think technology is evolving so fast, we are just not able to keep up with it. And I think that's why once we saw short form content, everything has become far more damaging because it is so sensory wired for us to be able to just keep wanting to search more and more and more for that next dopamine spike. Now, I think that there's two ways to be able to fairly easily change this. One of them being whatever platform you have that you are just hooked on getting those notifications, turn the notifications off. That's going to be the first step. The next step is going to be to actually turn off the color mode on your phone or whatever it is that you're using. Looking at it in black and white and actually turning the volume almost all the way down is going to eliminate so much of the sensory stimulus that it's no longer going to be as enjoyable. Look at this one clip of pouring out some Coca-Cola. It's going to make you want to have some. But the second one, after we make these changes, clearly there is a far different desire. So I really just wanted to show that I do not think that social media in itself is evil, nor do I think that these companies are evil themselves. I think that they are simply just trying to sell a product. I think that the way they are doing so is so not moral, but I think the more that we focus on the negativity, the more that we begin to neglect the positivity and what it is that it can actually do. I think that so many people are choosing to just take themselves out of the picture in terms of sharing or using social media, that the negativity is just growing, and I think that it's getting worse. So I wanted to share that I think while a lot of what's happening is damaging, I think that there's ways that we can actually begin to make it better. And overall, a lot of these problems are because of things that we haven't faced within ourselves. We do have to understand the fact that these algorithms are just going to become stronger as time goes on. So our techniques are going to have to become more creative. I think that our bodies are going to want to be searching for this dopamine even more. And so I began to incorporate a dopamine detox, and I actually went ahead and created a video on that to be able to understand what that actually means and how it's far different than what a lot of other people say. I did find it to be tremendously beneficial, so make sure you check that out.